I've got to be conscious of when I'm leading into manipulating maybe a person. By the mere fact we're talking, I'm influencing you. So just, I can be quiet in a room when I'm influencing. So there's no getting around influencing. So then the question becomes more personal responsibility. So how do I begin? That's why this was such an important topic to me. So for me, there's always going to be a degree of influence. And then the way I've at least given myself a bit of self-love is to say, what's your intention here?
Okay, Andy said this chapter is about influence versus manipulation.
Yeah.
So how do you distinguish between these two things?
This has been something I've sat with a lot of my life because, of course, if you have good intentions and then you influence a person and then like really bad happens to them, do you then say they manipulated? Right. So I've often sat with this dilemma. How do I look? And it isn't so black and white. So what I've become more conscious of is I'm a coach and I'm working with people. And I've got to be conscious of when I'm leading into manipulating maybe a person. By the mere fact we're talking, I'm influencing you. So just, I can be quiet in a room when I'm influencing. So there's no getting around influencing. So then the question becomes more personal responsibility. So how do I begin? That's why this was such an important topic to me. So for me, there's always going to be a degree of influence. And then the way I've at least given myself a bit of self-love is to say, what's your intention here? And being clear on that. And then seeing if I'm pushing somebody who isn't asking for something, then I have to ask myself, what do I want? And realize maybe it's not what they were asking for. And now I'm verging on like getting a bit on the gradient to more pushing someone in a direction I think they should go, but they're not asking. And I really want to be tuned with that as a coach or a mentor.
So it sounds like your definitions between the two, it's not black or white. It's not either you're influencing or manipulating. It's more like a continuum. Like, is the water cold or hot? And there's this gradient along the way. But it also sounds like when you push your stuff on other people, like basically manipulation only happens by bad.
Yeah.
Only bad people do manipulation.
Yeah. But the gradient of I'm doing bad stuff, but I'm not aware of it. It would be a little bit in that gradient of it's not as bad as someone who intentionally is manipulating, but it is getting in the direction. It's not serving the person who's being influenced.
Now, you also talk about agency here and bring it back to agency.
Yeah.
How do you see agency as another determination between these two? It seems like there's two parts. There's intention. There's also this agency part.
Well, I'd love to have a fun experiment. There's something I've been with you for 2 or 3 days now, and there's something that I see you don't get. You just don't get it. And I know because you don't get it, that's now a problem in your life you're never going to solve. So in talking to you this way, what I'm doing is I'm in some way trying to take agency away from you. Because now I've said there's a gap, you're not aware of it, and you need to solve it. So now you're sitting there like, oh, okay, now I felt at peace, but all of a sudden I don't feel comfortable right now because of whatever I've introduced. And now I'm like, but there is a course I have. There's something that I can do for you that I believe will fix that. So in a way, what I've done is I've created call it false or maybe not false. We'll just for the sake of it, maybe I genuinely want to help you in an area. And now you have to sit with the gap I've created. And now I'm introducing the way I can fix that for you. So that's for me, starting to take away another person's agency is when you are intentionally or not intentionally making them feel that you're required for them to have something in their lives, whatever that might be.
Okay. So it seems that when I said before that manipulation is always from bad people, that had to do with intention because you're suggesting there has to be a bad intention.
Yeah.
Certainly. But this agency thing seems to be distinct from that in the sense that I can check myself of, am I still making you feel that you have control of the choice, or am I finding a way to take the choice away from you? Which is less clear whether it's a bad person or not who's doing it. And it more seems to be an interesting check.
Yeah, it's an interesting check. I mean, everyone feels like I got to make a living. How do I do it? I got to do it by convincing you that I've got something unique. So there is a need for them to live their lifestyle. So the question is, how do you go about doing that? And I've really made a practice of being very much connected to myself in that process. So maybe there's 10 people that I might sell services to, but maybe 2 or 3 of those 10 are really people where there's a match that makes sense. I'm not going to convince the 8 because I want something from them. I would say I want something for them. That's the feeling that comes up in me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to me about this exercise. Like, how do you hope people use it? And what do you hope they get out of it?
So this exercise specifically, a friend called me who was in a landmark training, and she said, I introduced this exercise and all of a sudden it became the training. And so it was like looking at people in their lives and asking these questions and then deepening, like, how far am I ready to let them be them and let myself be who I want to be? And the more the 4 doors, then I can pick it up. I'll just read the questions if that's okay. It's serious. Am I willing to accept that this may be the perfect thing for them at this stage in their life? So for instance, when we talked about the relative you mentioned earlier, am I willing to accept that if he goes to prison, that might be the best thing for him? Like, can I allow that to be okay? Right. And then the second is, am I willing to accept that whatever they choose to do is fine? The third would be, am I willing to accept that it's their decision to make and not mine? And then the fourth is, am I willing to accept that it's not easy for me to surrender to the journey of another? And those 4 doors give you a deep insight into, like, wow, how am I interacting with this individual and where am I making peace with who they are today? Or where do I, again, need them to be a little bit different? And I feel like I can influence that.
So it sounds like maybe this isn't about an outward, like, am I okay outwardly? It's, am I okay with myself, like internal, with my feelings and my emotions about it? Can I get okay with that rather than, I'm not okay that the person's going out and damaging society, but I'm okay with my feelings about my lack of control over this outcome.
Yes, that would be very much connected to most of the practices. It's, as I said, I started with self in that chapter is, am I able to make peace within myself? And then can I interact from that space?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.